Hey, so I just wanted to create this video. It's going to be about an hour long. What we're going to discuss is a few topics. So we're going to go from beginner to intermediate, kind of just touching on some of the intermediate subjects as to how to use AI, how to think of AI, not necessarily as a search engine, because I know we're all used to Google, but then how to use Google, the Gemini AI, in the way it's meant to be used for the most effective output. So let's get started. So first of all, I just want to talk about the tech stack issue. So as you can see here in the image, we've got a lot of old tech that's basically getting destroyed by this avalanche, and then the few tech giants that are coming out ahead. I just wanted to illustrate the fact that wherever you're staking your tech stack is going to either hold you back and pull you into the avalanche, or it's going to pull you forward and your business forward. Um, because let's take Microsoft for instance. If you stuck your business claim in Microsoft, and now you see all these free tools on Google, Sheets instead of Excel, Docs instead of Word, Slides instead of PowerPoint. They're all open source and you can share them with people and collaborate at the same time. And now you're just like, why am I paying for Microsoft if Google's is free? Well, it's really difficult to move all of your content over, all of the processes, especially if you ingrained yourself in Microsoft. But if you're paying for Google Workspace because you have a Google or Gmail email, like your domain is hosted by Gmail, you're paying for all those tools. And you might also be paying for their AI, which is why I want to mostly talk about Google's AI today, Gemini. If you are paying for Workspace at any level, you might have an upgraded version of the Gemini AI, and it's embedded into a lot of those tools. So slides, sheets, docs, AI is embedded in every single one of their tools, which makes it easy for you to transition your current work into your work plus AI. Here are some of the things that you really should consider though when using the AI. You don't want to consider it a search engine. You want to consider it a intelligent intern. And here's what I mean. So with the search engine, you typically work off of keywords. It's generally vague, not full sentences. You say something like, I don't know, HVAC near me. Well, with that, the intelligent AI might not necessarily know what you're looking for or why you're looking for it. So it's just going to give you some companies near you, maybe top 10 based on the HVAC keyword search. But if you're a little bit more specific and you're providing lots of context and you're saying, my AC is leaking, I just need someone to provide me like a quick quote in, I don't know, Tempe, Arizona, um, then that context is going to give the AI a little bit more to work with. And it's going to suggest maybe more off of availability. Maybe someone who's got a booking link on their website. Maybe someone who responds to a lot of messages on social media. But it gives something for the AI to work with a little bit more so than if you just have those keywords similar to a search engine. With the search engine, we also use it as a fact checking tool. So we can check multiple sources. We're looking at the top 10 results and we're hoping that the first five are actually credible just based on how Google determines that credibility. But now what we need to do is we need to ask for sources because we have no idea how it's coming up with these sources. And even when it's providing sources, sometimes these are completely phantom websites. So we need to check that the sources are real. AI is really good at hallucinating, and we cannot trust it with every single output that it provides. So we need to make sure that when it gives us a claim, any kind of claim, that it's rooted in reality, especially when you're using the chat feature. Now, if you are using different tools, and I'm going to go into these other tools later, that's actually free with Google, and it's not anywhere else, it's actually more rooted in reality, and there's less of a chance of a hallucination. So let's get into that later, but we can't consider a one and done. Now, typically with the search engine, we can search with specific keywords, and we're used to that. We were taught that in school. We could be vague, and it's typically on the first or second page. One and done. We can get all the information we need pretty quickly. However, with AI, they need a lot of context. They might need iterations. Typically, the first output is not the best. Now, with images, with graphic design, that might be a little different, especially if you're giving it the context as to what the output should look like. But for websites, for large outputs like spreadsheets or I don't know, like infographics, it's very difficult for the AI to have all of the context it needs to have the best output for the first output. So we need to be patient enough to iterate and make it better because that's also going to make our future outputs better. And sometimes we assume it knows intent. Now, that's also because of the keyword searches that we're used to. If we search HVAC near me, the intent usually is going to be I'm looking for someone to help me with my HVAC issues ASAP. Like it's immediate. Like I need someone now. Whereas sometimes the AI just needs a little bit more context and we need to clarify our intent. So maybe we're just looking for maintenance. Who knows? But giving them that intent or asking for it to clarify intent allows the AI to give us better outputs after the first or second prompt. The way I want you to think about AI is it's a probability engine. So it's not rooted in any kind of reality. There are websites that it scrapes, but again, it's a probability engine. So it's trying to take what you said in terms of the prompt, and then it's searching the site for keywords that are similar to what you said, and it's predicting what the next word should be so that you're satisfied with that answer. Sometimes it's a reality and sometimes it's not. But essentially, you're going to have different potential outputs that it's considering, and this is all under microseconds. It's got several potential outputs that it's considering, all potentially equally correct in probability, but it's picking out of a random infinite possibilities. So you have to understand that there's definitely a lot of room for error, which is why hallucinations are so common. And hallucinations are a good thing. Don't get me wrong. Hallucinations are a good thing, especially when it comes to the creative side of things, because that's what we do as well. Like we don't get everything correct. And hallucinations also leave room for a creativity or a spark of inspiration. And it might be a better output than what we've imagined from the beginning. So hallucinations can be great, but you need to understand where you need to box the AI in more with more context or let it loose and have it have more hallucinations. So you really need to understand where to like reel that in. So here are some of the main issues with AI. We absolutely need to verify all the facts that it claims. We can't ever let AI state a claim without a verified source. We can't let it give us a source without verifying it either, because it could be a phantom source. It could be a fake website. It could go to a 404 and we had no idea. We need to protect our data. So if we are trying to do any kind of data analytics and we've got sensitive customer data, whether it's like contact information, addresses, payment invoice information, maybe some forms, we definitely don't want to screenshot those and give those to AI. Why? Well, the way AI is trained, especially with these larger corporations, is everyone's data. So it's constantly getting smarter because of all the inputs we're giving it. The more we feed it data, the smarter it becomes. Well, what does that mean for customer data? If it collects customer data, some of the outputs could accidentally be real customer data. Now it's leaked to the public. We don't necessarily want to do that. So protect that at all costs. What I normally do is if I'm trying to do data analytics for customer data is I'll ask it to provide dummy data and I'll give it guidelines as to how to perceive that data. And then I would do the analytics on that data. And then I would just use the same methodology on the real data. So that way I'm never inputting real customer data into the AI. So this kind of like gives a veil of like, it gives a veil to your real data. And next is plagiarism. This is a double-edged sword, and that's kind of what this illustration is supposed to show. The AI, we want it to search for our materials. Why? Well, Google has made it so that now its search output is mostly AI driven. So we want AI to be able to scrape our sites. That being said, if AI is scraping our sites and we are a creative, like a blog writer, or we are someone who writes copy for a living, now AI can mimic our writing style. because it's scraping our sites. But our materials would never have been found if AI didn't scrape our sites. So it is a double-edged sword because plagiarism is going to be fairly difficult to not do if we are using AI in our writing. So please, 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 please do not plagiarize. Now, that being said, here are some of the best frameworks for actually giving your prompt. So I want you to consider R.A.C.E as the framework, role being identify what they are acting as. So you're an expert blog writer. You are an expert content creator for social media, typically Meta. Um, Action. So you want to be very specific with each one of these sections. In action, you will create ideas around for a blog post. You will create images for Facebook, and here is what I want to post. That's giving it context. Here is the caption that I want to provide for this picture. Can you give me 5 ideas for images that we might be able to use for this particular caption? As far as context goes, it could also be the audience for this is going to be business owners. The audience for this is going to be homeowners. The audience for this is going to be anybody in a 5-mile radius of Arizona, who knows? But that gives it a little bit more context in how to rewrite certain things. And then the expectation that could be set. So this kind of grounds it into something. If you have successful posts in the past, you can screenshot them and deliver that. You can also copy and paste and input that into the chat and say, like, this was successful in the past. I determined success by it having a lot more views than some of the other posts that I've had. What we're trying to do here is get a little bit more awareness. Can you please generate some more post ideas or posts? So that's kind of like grounding it in that correct expectation while also providing context. Now, you want to provide constraints for the AI. So again, it is a probability machine. You want to give it enough of a box that it stays within that realm. But like this gelatin image, it could bounce around. It could sometimes come to the edge of that box that you're providing. So you really have to manage the reality that it's in. If you want to tighten the box, you're probably looking at something that's more data driven, something that's more like mathematics. You want to be a lot more specific. Maybe you're considering brand voice. Then you want it really grounded in reality by providing maybe a sheet that has your brand voice on it. You just want to make sure that it's tied to something so that it stays tight. If you want it to be a little bit more creative, be more vague. Allow that box to be more widened. Ask for options, and then maybe go down that conversation rabbit hole with chat in order to create a better outcome because you want it to be creative. Now, here are some example prompts, and we're gonna go through this ourselves too. I'm gonna actually show you a few prompts that I use every day, and then we're gonna go into a little bit more of an intermediate way of prompting and go into some of the other features that Google might have for you. So a generic prompt might be, help me write blog posts for my website. Well, what kind of website? What kind of blog posts? Are they more informative? Are they just trying to sell something? Who's the audience? There's a lot of questions that the AI could ask here because there's not a lot of context. After you give them that first prompt, it probably will make a lot of assumptions and give you a blog post output, even if you provide, like, say, a link to your website. Now, it doesn't necessarily know your voice. You're probably gonna have to prompt it something like, can you make it sound more conversational? Well, what does conversational mean to you? How do you have conversations? What does your word choice look like? There's still a lot of questions. It's still pretty vague, but you're going to have to go down this conversation rabbit hole with chat in order to make it like work well. And then if you say something like, come up with better ideas for blog posts, well, what does a better idea look like? Oh, who's the audience again? Like we are very vague when it comes to giving these prompts here. And that's why I have the dots here, because it's like, okay, where do I go from here? So for the RACE method, we're giving it a role. So you are an expert SEO focused blog writer. Okay, so now it understands not only am I writing for the audience, I'm also writing for Google. I want it to scrape certain keywords around topics that this person wants to discuss. So what kind of topics is this person discussing? Okay, so we're not writing a blog yet. We're writing outlines for 5 blog ideas. Great. So now I'm a specific SEO blog writer. I want to consider keywords, and I'm just giving ideas to start out. And then from those ideas, maybe I'll create the content around keywords around those topics. And then context. So our customers are usually people who, so now we've got an audience. Okay, great. So now I know who to write for. And then lastly is the expectation. We generally write in the tone of. And so this is an example of a good prompt. This is one prompt, not several, whereas the left is several prompts, and it would probably take you a lot longer to get the output you're looking for than if you just did the one on the right. However, you're never going to get something great in one shot. Let's go into let's go into some like actual outputs. So this is Gemini. If you're not familiar with Gemini, this is Google's chat. It's got several features very similar to ChatGPT if you're more familiar with ChatGPT or Claude. On the left side, you'll see that this is where all of the previous history was for your chats. You can create a new chat, and then you can create a section called My Stuff. So all of your output that's ever been output. The images, you can see that I've got a lot of dog stuff here because I do have some clients who are dog groomers. And then we do have some quick action buttons here, but I want to focus on the tools. So we can add files from Drive, we can import code, upload files, and then Notebook LM. Some of the tools here, so creating an image, this doesn't just create images, it also edits images, and it's really photorealistic. I want to say Google's Nano Banana, which is Google's image generator, is significantly better than Sora, which is OpenAI's ChatGPT's image generator, or Claude, which I think it just codes. I don't think it actually has an image output for like a PNG or JPEG, but this image generator is insane. I'm going to show you, well, you've seen a lot of the images in the slide deck here. So these were actually all AI generated through Gemini. But let's come up with a creative prompt here. So I want to go over some practical application on how to use Gemini. There are some tools. I think we went over the tools already. So I want to go for practical application, right? So first, let's assume you are a professional social media manager. Our audience is mainly adults, ages 35 to 55 in the city of Scottsdale, generally playful but educational. So I'm giving it a very minimalistic prompt here. It does have quite a bit of context. So now I'm giving it a voice, I'm giving it the audience, so who they're speaking to, and I'm giving who we are and what their role is. So I'm giving it room for creativity. If it's too specific and it's too long, generally what's going to happen is we're tying it down, we're tethering it too much to what we think it should look like. And that's not necessarily going to give you the best output. So what we want to do is we want to give it enough breathing room to have creativity here. Now, one of the first ideas is it just us, or is Arizona sun feeling spicy today? We know to put SPF on our skin. What about our eyes? Long-term exposure to UV rays can speed up cataracts, macular degeneration. Don't let Scottsdale sun win. Stop by and check out our new polarized designer frames. Interesting. So the post idea is a short, funny reel or a carousel showing someone at a fancy Scottsdale restaurant holding a menu closer, then further, then turning on their phone flashlight. That is pretty common. I feel like I do see a lot of people, especially in dimly lit restaurants, using their phone flashlight. And this is actually something that I didn't know is a problem and you should see your optometrist for. So our restaurant menu is getting smaller, your arms getting shorter. If you've officially hit the holding things at arm's length to read them phase of life, welcome to the club. It's called presbyopia. Interesting. I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly. But it looks like progressive lenses are the choice here. So it's interesting because if you highlight this in an image and people associate themselves with this, and then you discuss the problem in the caption, and then, so this is actually a fairly good post idea. I'm going to use this. So let's use the short arm syndrome as an idea. Let's come up with three image prompts for nano banana. So now I'm shortening this. So I'm focusing in on one, and I want three image concepts. The reason why I do this is because not always will they output the best concept for an image when you're asking for a prompt. So now you can input three different prompts into the image generator, and you can see which one makes the most sense for you. Now, let's take a look and see what the output is for these three image prompts. So if I go to create image, now Gemini is probably one of the fastest image generators out of all of them. It's also one of the best for photorealistic. Reason being is it has a lot of data to train off of. It's a Google. I don't know if it can be the most creative, to be honest. If you're trying to edit photos, that's it. This is the best platform. But when you're trying to come up with like creative, cartoonish, graphic design styles, you're probably going to want to lean more towards Sora or a different AI image generator. However, this is really good with photorealistic images and editing photorealistic images. Just input three prompts and it output this. So it looks like they're in a Scottsdale restaurant. It looks like it's a fairly nicely lit area, and she's having a hard time reading the menu. This is a clear depiction of what presbyopia or whatever whatever this issue with your eye might be. So this clearly captures that, and it looks so realistic. You probably could pick out the word on the menu says Tempest. That might actually be a real location here in Scottsdale. So let's look at some of the other options they gave us. This one's more satirical. So let's see what the concept of a satirical surrealist editorial photo looks like. This one's more of a man near Camelback Mountain. Okay, this one's a little bit more exaggerated, not realistic in any sense. I wouldn't necessarily want to use this image. This is why we want iterations of images. The first one so far has been phenomenal. Let's continue. So this would be the last prompt that it gave us. Make sure you don't have the word prompt in there when prompting it. Okay, again, this one's a little bit more slightly exaggerated. Not a fan because it doesn't look realistic. This looks very cinematographic. It's not great in my opinion. I mean, the view is phenomenal. Like, this does look like a realistic woman. This looks like a realistic location. However, this shot is going to be fairly challenging to have with only one person in it. I mean, we're talking about a golf course in near Camelback Mountain. This is going to have more people. There's no way it's this clear. The golf court and the golf cart in the background with the golf bag. This seems a little too obvious placement for this to be at least not a well-produced photo. So the image here feels best for social media because this doesn't feel well produced. This feels like it's more playful, it's more like real versus some of these others. Like this one, it looks like the background's photoshopped. It looks like this is not a real location. It looks like he's physically contorting his face. Like this is just not a real shot. So that's why I would pick this one over the other two. So now I kind of want to come up with some ideas on blog posts. Okay, so let's assume we're going to create a new chat. We're going to go to Canvas. So Canvas is something that allows you to um, not only code and create slides, but it also allows you to create blog posts and you can edit within the canvas itself certain blog posts, which is phenomenal. Let me show you how it works. So let's assume that I'm a physical therapist, and I've noticed that a lot of people are coming in from pickleball elbow. The reason um, why people are coming in from pickleball elbow, who knows? Maybe I just know a lot of people who play pickleball, especially in the Scottsdale region. Um, but let's say blog writer who works with physical therapists. I want to write an article about it on my website, outline a simple blog post explaining what causes it, symptoms. Now I don't like using fast, I'll use pro. Let's see what it gets output here. So as you can see with the canvas, it does have a split screen. So half the screen is going to be whatever is proposed. So now they've got proposed titles. What I can do is I can actually highlight and specifically talk to Gemini about it. I can edit, change tone, change length, and suggest edits specific. So I can make adjustments as this is a canvas. So you can see here that I can change and type and text and like maybe briefly adjust certain things. So like why your elbow hurts after pickleball and how to fix it. Pickleball, what is it and why it happens, and 3 stretches to prevent it. Love pickleball, hate the elbow pain. Can we make this the title officially? I don't think I want to do that yet because I want to look at some of the other sections just in case, because as I'm making edits, it might accidentally edit some of the other things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look throughout the whole article and then make adjustments. So the pickleball boom and the unwanted souvenir. So acknowledge pickleball and elbow pain boom. Elbow pain boom. How about the pickleball and injury boom? Because pickleball elbow is not the only thing that you get. I hear a lot of people when they play pickleball also sprain their ankles. So the hook, acknowledge how incredibly popular pickleball has become. It's fun, social, great workout. Mention that as a physical therapist, you're seeing a massive influx of patients coming in with the same complaint, nagging elbow after a few matches, and ankle sprains. Introduce the fact that this specific pain is actually a classic case of tennis elbow, just repackaged for the pickleball court. We've also noticed that with pickleball, the constant, quick back and forth motion can create problems for your ankles. What exactly is pickleball elbow? Briefly introduce the term lateral without getting too deep into medical jargon. Explain it as inflammation or micro tearing of the tendons that attach your forearm muscles to the outside bony bump of your elbow. The purpose of these muscles, explain that these are the muscles responsible for bending your wrist back and forth and gripping the paddle. I had no idea. See, I thought tennis elbow happens when you overextend your elbow. So when you snap your arm straight, that's when you get it. I thought it was because your bicep was a little too tense and it actually pulled up on those tens. That's why I thought you get tennis elbow. But that's pretty interesting. Interesting. Okay. So this is completely focused just on the tennis elbow portion. Now, as I made those changes in the text, there could be some cascading effects, but let's see. So I'm going to ask Gemini, can we make this the official title? So this is a much more focused, clean way of actually editing things. So as you click and highlight, you can ask Gemini specifically about different topics. So let's look at prevention. Let's look at, can we ensure to cite sources for all claims made in. So let's see if it cites sources specifically for this part of the article. I'm wanting to see sources cited for all parts of the article, but since I highlighted this section, it might just refer to this section here. And we do see that it's just referring to that section, and it did a great job of citing those sources. So source to site, American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons. I think that's a pretty solid source to cite. Journal of Sports Medicine, it's Science and Medicine, American Journal of Sports Medicine, Sports Health and Physical Therapy literature detailing the correlation between constant group force and extensor carpi radial brevi strain. We do have a solid outline. I wouldn't necessarily want it to write the blog completely for me yet. I still want to add a few things before I write the article. You know what? I'm going to make it an advisor. We updated a few lines for ankle sprains. Would it make sense to have these sections in a completely different blog post? Give me pros and cons. So now I did have bits and pieces of ankle issues. The title here is Pickleball Elbow and Pain. So I'm wondering if it's going to pick up on that and give me arguments for and against. So I don't ever want this to make decisions for me. What I like to do is have it give me the pros and cons, and I can weigh them and see what makes the most sense for me and my business. I highly recommend moving ankle sprains to their own separate blog post. Pros: it drastically improves your SEO by targeting specific intent. Cons: the only real downside is having to write a second article, but combining them dilutes your topic and risks losing readers who only care about one specific injury. Now, that's kind of what I was thinking when this article was being written, like the whole outline. I like this. I think it should be introduced. The ankle sprain should be introduced, and then maybe you can have some cross linking, and that's really good for blog posts on websites. Like, you want to have a link from one blog to another blog, one part of your website to another part of your website. So this actually really helps with that. So here is a clear outline along with sources and advice while building the blog for your site. Now, last, I want to go over deep research. Now, this is probably going to take the longest. It's going to render a lot of material because it's going to scrape about 50 to 100 sites to do specific key research for you. Now, what I want to do is I want to imagine I'm a dentist and I want to do research on clear aligner brands competing with Invisalign. So I want to see what those different brands use in terms of material, the effectiveness, how long it takes in comparison to Invisalign, maybe even the costs. I want to see some pros and cons, but here's the way I would ask while I'm doing deep research. So search for clear aligners competing with Invisalign. Search for clear aligners competing with Invisalign. I'm interested in pricing, customer reviews, the speed, the length of time it takes for treatment, then I'm going to write ETC because a lot of times what happens is it would recommend a few things that might be in the same ballpark, but I'm going to show you in a second. So here's the research plan. So instead of actually doing the research at first, it creates a research plan because it does take a lot of processing power in order to actually do research. What it does is it breaks down the different topics it wants to research, and it's asking you, okay, does this make sense before we hit start research? Now, currently it says identify the top clear aligner brands that compete with Invisalign, categorized by at-home impression kits. For each identified competitor, determine the complete pricing structure, include upfront costs, monthly financing options, research average, advertised length of treatment time for each brand, and compare to Invisalign standard treatment duration. create or gather aggregate customer reviews, find clinical options, reviews, recommendations from licensed dentists, synthesize the findings into a comprehensive comparison, highlighting the pros and cons of each alternative based on price, treatment, timeline, customer satisfaction, professional endorsement. This is exactly what I was looking for. This is exactly what I wanted. So I'm going to hit start research, and I'll come back to you in a few minutes because it's going to take about 3 to 5 minutes. You can see that it does open up similar to what Canvas mode does. It's a split screen, and in the right, it's rendering some of the notes that it's creating from the research. You can see here that it's researching, and later down the road, you'll be able to see what the sources are. So you can see that some of the research has been rendering. It's been categorizing alternative market alternatives, decoding hidden expenses, industry contract and recovery. It's still rendering some of the other research that it's doing. You can see that it's loaded about 75%. So we still have some time before it's done, but it does take a second because it's going through hundreds of different websites, and it really has to think through some of the processes. So I was talking about clear aligner alternatives. So it has to leave out Invisalign and then have ones that associate themselves with something similar to Invisalign in. And then I was talking about customer reviews. So now it has to figure out, okay, what are credible customer reviews? Is it going to be on Google? Is it going to be on websites like Reddit? Where is it going to be where we have like credible customer reviews? So it does have a lot that it needs to think through. So it does take a lot of processing power in order to come up with some of the research that it does detail. Also, credible doctor reviews. So I asked, not peer, but doctor reviews of those different products similar to Invisalign. So definitely interesting that this AI can do this type of research. So this is how you know when the research is completed. So at first glance, you can see that the orb has been completely filled. It's no longer blue, it's gray. Obviously when it's filling, it's blue, but on the right, you can also see that it's no longer thinking. It's got a full-on article here. And you can see that this is a fairly detailed research article on the topic of Invisalign alternatives. You can see that here are some of the sites that they use. Ivan Ortho to Good Tooth Dental Care, PMC, Gentle Dentistry, SI, and then a lot of publications. Phoenix Mag, Pinnacle Peak, Orthodontics, Family Brown Ortho. So it's also pulling from local bloggers, Knox Valley Dental. So that's where it's getting its information when it comes to dentist approved invisible aligners. So it's really interesting that I was able to do that. Now I can also export this sheet to docs and essentially have it so that I can edit it as a document. I can also have this, so like I've got the table of contents here. I can create something else, so I can create a web page, infographic, quiz. I can even do this and pull some of the sources and create my own. I can do something with like Notebook LM, which is a different add-on. If you guys don't know what that is, I'm going to do a little bit more of a deep dive in Notebook LM. But essentially what it is it takes sources from the internet and it uses it as like a reference, and it constantly references that. So there's less room for error when it comes to hallucinations. It's consistently referencing your sources, and in the output, it even has the sources cited every single time. So this could be used as a way for us to input those sources into, like, say, a Notebook LM. But it's interesting that you can go from this long article to create some sort of infographic, a quiz, or some flashcards. So you can learn from what this output might be. But let's take a look and see what the infographic might look like. So after clicking the infographic, you can see here behind me, you can see that it's starting to code. It looks like it might be creating some sort of image, but this is pretty interesting. It's going to use the data that's provided, answering the questions, what are some good alternatives? What are some of the best, most recommended by doctor and by people? What's the cost, the length of time it takes to, the length of time it takes to actually straighten the teeth, the race to straight teeth. At-home aligners often target mild to moderate cosmetic corrections, drastically reducing average treatment times compared to comprehensive orthodontic realignment, typically handled by Invisalign. So the bite averages the fastest turnaround time in just 4.5 months. So Byte at home. Byte is also one of the cheaper ones, averaging at about 2,200. We can see that the hybrid approach is probably Candid when it comes to doctor supervision models. Byte is direct to consumers. When it comes to customer support, Invisalign has the best. Byte is not the worst. Candid is lowest on that customer satisfaction report. But when it comes to clinical effectiveness, Invisalign is the highest and Candid is pretty high here. And then Byte is kind of low. So in this case, Byte might be good for like the smaller cosmetic issues, because if you have more of a complex, so like me in particular, I've got crowding in my lower teeth. I'd probably go for Candid because not only is it cheaper, comfort, convenience, price, not only is it cheaper than Byte, which was considered cheaper than Invisalign. I'm not sure why that price is here. Definitely not sure why that's there. Not only is Candid cheaper, but it's also way more clinically effective than Byte, but pretty close to Invisalign here at a 4.5. Convenience, not too far off. It's a 4, where Byte is a 5. Comfort is still pretty high, and then Candid customer support. So customer support, I'm not sure what that metric is about. I'd have to go in to see if that's like customer reviews or if like they're reviewing support in particular, but it looks like customer support's pretty low here. But if you look at prices, Candid is the hybrid model, which is the same as like starts with an in-person scan by a professional followed by remote monitoring via an app, balances professional oversight with convenience. And you can see the race to straight teeth, Candid is the second, at averaging at 7.5 months. Aligner Co is 8.5 months. And then this is 12, where Invisalign is the longest for 15 months. And price is about 5,500 average. So assuming that this patient satisfaction dimension is looking at reviews that they found online, I'm assuming the reason why this is a 2 is because we're scoring people on a scale of 1 to 5 in terms of satisfaction. So the cheapest is probably going to be Byte, which is why it's a 4 out of 5. Convenience is a 5, and then 3.5 is clinical effectiveness. So actually getting the result you're looking for, Byte is not that effective. And then customer support, it's great on customer support. You kind of have to be if you're not clinically effective. Ooh, that's really bad. Candid, very clinically effective. Customer support, not so great. Comfort is just as high as Invisalign. Convenience is pretty high. Average, Candid is pretty high on all metrics, and I think Candid is probably a good alternative to Invisalign, but maybe not. Byte would be, I don't think Byte would be up there. And then I probably could ask it to create another infographic with all 5. I really like this though. This is such a cool tool that it created out of the data that was provided here. So lastly, I just want to reiterate, you're not looking at AI as a search engine anymore. You're looking at it as an eager intern. Gemini is a capable intern in the right hands. We just need to delegate the heavy lifting correctly. So consider what we talked about before. Use the R.A.C.E method. Try to give it as much context as possible. Use the correct tools when doing certain things. Gemini is also really good at picking up on what tools need to be used, but when using the right tools, it would actually operate significantly better. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.